are watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. How should Canadian Muslims approach the abortion debate? We will talk to the chairman of the Canadian Centre for DEEN Studies, Dr. Hamid Slimi. But first, some news headlines. Justice of the Peace orders Israeli organization to attend court. Alberta Human Rights Commission names new chief. CBC considers removing its objectivity requirement. Lebanon MPs to elect new president amid economic crisis. And now the details. A Justice of the Peace has ordered Sar El Canada to attend court on November 23rd regarding allegations that the organization is recruiting Canadians to volunteer in the Israeli armed forces. The volunteers would reside on military bases, wear military uniforms, and perform tasks that military soldiers would do, such as cleaning tanks. It is alleged that this violates the Foreign Enlistment Act. Section 11 of the Act prohibits the recruiting or inducing of any person to enlist or to engage with a foreign military. Sar El Canada is part of a worldwide movement in 30 countries that sends volunteers to Israel. The Alberta Human Rights Commission has named Evaristas Oceanbow as its incoming chief after rescinding the appointment of Colin May. Oceanbow is an Associate Dean of Law at the University of Calgary. He specializes in business law, contract law, and mining law. Oceanbow will serve as the chief of the commission and tribunals until March 2023. Justice Minister Tyler Shandro rescinded May's appointment 2 weeks ago after he received an open letter from several Muslim organizations in Alberta demanding May's removal. The Muslim community says that May's comments in a journal in 2009 were Islamophobic. An editorial by the Quebec newspaper La Presse this week says that the national broadcaster, CBC, is allegedly considering ending its requirements for its reporters to be objective while on the job. CBC requires its reporters to refrain from sharing personal opinions and partisan leanings. The corporation's primary union, the Canadian Media Guild, has been demanding the removal of the objectivity requirement for more than 2 years. During the Black Lives Movement in 2020, the union issued a letter to the senior management saying that the objectivity requirement hinders reporters from speaking about their identities and lived experiences. The Lebanese parliament met today to elect a new president, with no consensus on a successor to the outgoing head of state Michel Aoun. Deep divisions among MPs have raised fears Lebanon could be left without a president, further undermining creditor confidence. The Lebanese pound has lost more than 95% of its value on the black market since 2019 in a financial meltdown, branded by the World Bank as one of the worst in modern times. Under Lebanon's confessional power-sharing system, the presidency is reserved for a Maronite Christian. France, Saudi Arabia, and the United States issued a joint statement last week, urging MPs to, quote, elect a president who can unite the Lebanese people. And that's it for the news. The United States Supreme Court has overturned the constitutionally protected right to abortion in June this year. Since then, at least 14 states have banned it, making it illegal or restricting access. The US debate will likely spill over to Canada in our next federal election. It's a divisive issue. How should Canadian Muslims approach this issue? To talk to us today, we are joined by Dr. Hamid Slimi, who is the chairman of the Canadian Centre for DEEN Studies. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this very divisive topic. Saudi Arabia now has easier access to abortion than Alabama, which is a state in the US. Saudi Arabia is usually seen as a country that restricts women's rights. So can you tell us, without getting into politics, what is the Islamic perspective on abortion?
Well, abortion, as we all know, by default, it's haram. It's not allowed because life is sacred. So Islam not only acknowledges but promotes life and any way to preserve life. However, Islam is also very well aware of people's situations. And in this specific debate of abortion, Islam stands out when it comes to balancing between religion and belief and also the reality of people. So, for instance, when it comes to abortion, yes, you say to a person who wants to abort a child, a baby, you're not allowed, but then you don't look at their situation. So Islam does leave room. That's number one. So situation of the person. However, there is a time limit, and I will come to discuss that later. And then also there is a consideration of course, what is need, what is necessity, what is in Islam need, like in English, need is very ambiguous. Is it need like dire need, necessity, or just need, like just need, you want something? So there are many classifications and categories of need in Islam. And last but not least, very important to understand that what is really life in Islam. There is totally clear instruction and direction and guidelines in the Quran. And for us, when the soul is put in the fetus, in the womb of the mother, after 3 stages, 40 days, 40 days, 40 days, that's 120, then we call it human life. Before that, the genesis, the creation, or the phase 1, which we refer to as the creation phase, it takes 120 days. And Islam is clear that the soul, comes after 120. So before that, it's a biological life. You may hear heartbeat, but it's a biological life. It may breathe, oxygen like a plant does. But to be a human life is after 120 days.
So when you're talking about this distinction between biological life and human life, then abortion can be allowed before the 120 days. My understanding in the Islamic classical jurisprudence, they were much less restrictive than modern scholars would suggest sometimes.
Yes. Again, in a very, very nutshell, because to be honest, we need a good time to talk about this so nobody, misquote us. In the 40 days, if it's a necessity due to, let's say, rape, let's say a woman is raped, we can tell her it's life. No, it's not life. Yet she can have ijhad or abortion. Rape, zina, adultery, and also a situation that will put the woman or the man in difficulty, including mental health, financial, physical, all of that. And I wouldn't say financial so to be understood because the Quran is clear that a financial situation should not be a reason why you would abort. But if it's a combination of many problems, mental health, physical, material, and a couple cannot have a child, they are allowed, not in all the schools of Islam. Only in Hanafi there is more room, little bit less restriction in Shafi'i and Hanbali. As far as a Maliki school, it's a no. Abortion is not allowed, period. But when we look at the majority of the scholars, they allow it if, for instance, there is, God forbid, a rape, or it's a pregnancy that came out of, wedlock, zina,
So under these very special conditions, it's allowed up to 120 days. And after that?
No, first the 40 days. After the 40 days, before 120 days, it's actually allowed if there is a health risk, for the mother. Health risk that her pregnancy might endanger her health. There are other considerations. And then you have the most important part here is after 120, all the scholars agree that it is not allowed to have abortion. And there is an opinion, modern fiqh, looking at a situation where a mother is going to die. There is imminent most likely, because nobody knows, you would talk any Muslim, tell you who knows. But if the mother is put in a real danger at that time, if they have to choose between the mother living or saving the baby, the priority is given to the mother. That's after 120 days.
So the debate in the Western context is always between something called pro-life and something called pro-choice. The way you've described the Islamic approach doesn't seem to fit either of those.
Yeah. Very important question. Thank you for that. Life and us, our bodies or the baby, we all belong to God. So God wants us to live. And we have no right to, as Allah says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَمَ اللَّهِ. Do not take away the life. Allah calls it nafs. This nafs means combination of body and soul. When the soul is in the body, it's called nafs. The Quran refers to it as nafs. The Hebrew, they call it nafash. In Arabic, nafs. Nafs, there is really no translation in English because it's a combination of the body and the soul. You have no right to take it away. And life belongs to God. We belong to God. So now, when you make a choice, it's not that it's up to you. It's not a personal choice. It is circumstances that give you no options, limited options, to choose between you living or the baby, like in the case of the up to 120, or in dire situation after 120 days for a woman. They added also, if there is a deformation, a severe deformation of the baby before 120, some scholars in the Hanafi and other madhabs, not in Maliki, they allow it if the child is not going to have a normal life, a group of complexities and difficulties coming together, which make quality of life anywhere, or in a situation that is not given a good life for that person and that baby. And we know, but everything is done with consultation with trustworthy doctors. And today, of course, science has advanced with the sound, the ultrasound and different tools they use. They can see actually the baby and the situation.
So we might have something to offer to the debate then, but Muslims don't tend to get involved. If it came down to a vote in Canada, how would we choose between pro-life and pro-choice parties if neither of those are the proper option for us?
It is difficult debate because we don't politicize this issue. However, it becomes a voting card. The issue is very clear for us Muslims. When it comes to voting, it's a different topic. We vote for those who are in line with our principles. If not, those who are more in line with us. So in Islam we have this gauging and this muwazana, we balance things. So you cannot say I'm not voting because all of them are not in line with my principle. Nobody's going to be in line with us 100%. But when it comes to protecting life, that is actually a priority. When it comes to removing harm, it is so. Removing harm is given priority over bringing benefit. So when we use these two rules of fiqh, we are more enlightened in our decision making.
So that's like a cliffhanger for the next interview, but we're out of time for this one. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Thank you for watching. If you like what we do, please share, like, and subscribe. Stay safe and God bless.